The following program is used as a guideline for the correct procedure. For more specific information, consult the proper maintenance manual. Fuel pump, fuel oil heat exchanger removal. The fuel pump is located on the far right side of the aft face of the accessory gearbox. The fuel oil heat exchanger is located on the left side of the fuel pump. For purposes of clarity for this program only, the fuel oil heat exchanger will be removed with the fuel pump. For ease of viewing, the fuel filter bowl will be removed. Make sure to shut off the fuel supplied to the engine prior to the fuel pump removal. The fuel system will drain if it is not shut off. After removing the safety wire, remove the inlet drain plug from the pump and drain the residual fuel into a container. Then install the plug and tighten and secure with safety wire. Next, disconnect the control bypass return fuel tube from the bypass port by removing the bolts and washers. Then remove the gasket. Do the same in removing the pump to control fuel tube from the discharge port. Also, disconnect the fuel inlet tube. Now, remove the drain line tube from the base of the fuel pump located below the MEC discharge port. Remove and retain the union. The main fuel discharge line to the fuel manifold is removed for viewing purposes of this program. After removing the safety wire, remove the 4 bolts and washers that secure the tubes to the oil in and oil out ports of the heat exchanger. The fuel pump weighs approximately 43 pounds, so it should be properly supported during removal so as to prevent spline damage. Do not, however, allow the pump to rest on the drive shaft. So loosen the nut of the coupling clamp, disengage the clamp, and remove the fuel pump with the fuel filter and fuel oil heat exchanger attached. Discard the preformed packings. This will complete the removal of the fuel pump. Remove the 8 self-locking nuts and washers and remove the heat exchanger from the fuel pump. The removed gaskets can be used again if they are serviceable. Fuel pump, fuel oil heat exchanger installation. Install the gasket and then the heat exchanger on the studs of the fuel pump. Secure it with the washers and nuts. Tighten and torque them to the recommended limit. Then, after removing the 3 bolts that hold the strainer cartridge assembly, use the jack screws and remove the screen. After cleaning the screen, reinstall the cartridge. Before installing the pump, check the gaskets for any damage. Make sure that the seating surface is not hard or brittle. Replace it if it is defective. After lubricating the packings and placing one into the mounting flange groove and the groove of the drive spline, mount the fuel pump onto its pad, aligning the pin with the hole. Secure the pump with a coupling clamp. Tighten and torque. Once again, make sure that the seal is installed in the adapter pad before installing the pump. Then, install the gaskets and connect the tubes, the oil in and oil out. Tighten and torque the bolts to the recommended limit. Next, connect the tubes with seal gaskets, bolts and washers and torque the bolts to the recommended limits. First, the fuel inlet tube. Then, the control fuel tube. Next, the bypass fuel tube. If necessary, reinstall the fuel filter bowl. Hand tighten until the bowl flange bottoms against the head. Then connect the fuel line to the fuel filter and the servo heater. Tighten the couplings. After performing the idle leak check and checking the oil level, this will complete the removal and installation of the fuel pump fuel oil heat exchanger. Fuel flow transmitter removal. Note that fuel flow transmitters that will be shipped for repair or not installed within 24 hours must be preserved to prevent internal corrosion. First, disconnect the electrical connector and place a protective cap on the connector. Then, remove the bolts and washers that attach the tubes and brackets to the transmitter and remove the transmitter. Remove the packings from the fuel tubes and discard them. After filling it with oil to coat the parts and draining it, install protective covers on the open ports. This will complete the removal of the fuel flow transmitter. Fuel flow transmitter installation. After removing the protective covers, lubricate the new packings and install them onto the fuel tubes. Using the alignment pin, install the transmitter under the accessory gearbox bracket with the electrical connector aft and secure it to the attaching tubes and brackets. Tighten and torque the bolts. Finally, connect the electrical connector. Tighten it finger tight plus 1/8 of a turn. This completes the removal and installation of the fuel flow transmitter. Fuel nozzle removal. Prior to removal, some exterior piping may have to be loosened. First, disconnect the feeder manifold line from the drain manifold. Then, after removing the safety wire, disconnect the knurled nut and slide the feeder manifold aft. Discard the packings. Then disconnect the fuel manifold line from the fuel nozzle. After removing the safety wire, remove the 3 bolts that secure the nozzle to the compressor rear frame. Note that some support brackets will need to be removed at some fuel nozzle locations. Make sure to protect the combustor internal casing and mounting pad if it will be open for an extended period of time. Fuel nozzle installation. There are different types of fuel nozzles used on the engine. Do not intermix nozzles. Replace them with the same type as removed. Each type is identified by part number and color code identification. Making sure that the mounting pads are clean, carefully install the gasket and fuel nozzle. Secure it with the 3 bolts. Hand tighten. Assemble any support brackets. Tighten and torque. Then connect the fuel manifold line to the fuel nozzle. Tighten the B-nut and torque to the recommended limit. Then perform the leak test as described in the proper maintenance manual. After lubricating and installing a new preformed packing in the feeder manifold knurled nut, connect the fuel nozzle drain shroud to the fuel nozzle by connecting the knurled nut. Hand tighten and safety wire. Next, connect the B-nut to the drain manifold. Tighten and torque. Perform a drain manifold leak test. Then attach the drain line to the drain manifold fitting. Tighten the B-nut and torque to the recommended limit. This concludes the removal and installation of the fuel nozzle as well as the line replaceable units of the fuel system.